Insight, the Stripped Back podcast with Stephen Buckley and Keith Delahan. It's all about the what, the how, and the why people do what they do for a living. Get first-hand knowledge and life stories from the new generation and the seasoned professionals through unfiltered chat and guest interviews, now on Insight, the Stripped Back podcast.
Welcome to episode 10, the season 1 finale of Insight, the Stripped Back podcast. And I'm your host, Stephen Buckley. Myself and my co-host Keith are so grateful to all of our listeners who took time out of their busy days to join us on this amazing journey. In this episode, we are going to take some time to reflect on the first season. We have covered a wide range of topics and we've had amazing guests sharing their stories. We are grateful for everyone who accepted our invitation to come on, and we look forward to many more on Season 2. On this episode, Josh Flynn will be joining myself and Keith on the Overload to share his brave and invaluable insights into the learning supports within the apprenticeship system. And Courtney Chard, a Canadian welder with an artistic flair, will be joining myself for a special feature interview. But before we get into that, here's the final Overload installment of Season 1. Enjoy.
The Overload segment, featuring Stephen Buckley and Keith Delahan.
Right, episode 10, The Overload, the finale for season 1. We've made it. What do you think?
I really enjoyed it. Seems like ages ago when you rang me that day and I was in work, and then I lost about 2 hours of work because we were chatting about this and talking about setting it up and what we could chat about and who we could potentially have on. But it seems like it's come a long way since that day.
In fairness, I thought I was crazy setting it up. I remember, getting in touch with yourself, sending the message, not getting a reply straight away. Obviously, you were busy with work, but I was doing the groundwork on the Instagram page, setting up the podcast, getting all the ducks in a row, and like you said, sending feeders out to potential guests and not knowing if anybody was going to get back in touch with me, So I think from January 9th, when I actually got registered on Spotify with the podcast, to January 22nd when the first episode came out. And now here we are, March, it's crazy how quick it goes, but we didn't know how it was going to go, and I just think, it's gone leaps and bounds beyond what we thought it could be,
Yeah, no, I remember you rang me and you said you were thinking of setting it up. You didn't really ask would I be interested. You see what you're kind of feeling out whether I thought it was a good idea, and I said, Jesus, I'd be delighted to come on it because I would listen to a lot of podcasts, based on being an electrician and stuff, but most of it would have been out of this country, like England, America and all that kind of stuff. And I would have been thinking, geez, it would be great to have something a bit closer to home with more relevant topics than, because obviously regs are different, codes are different in different countries, so to get our points across, we've different issues than they do and vice versa. So me and you were spitballing there for a good 2 hours that day, and we came up with a good few ideas. We said, look, we just run with it, just go with it. If
it works, it works, and if it didn't work, then sure, what did we lose,
Yeah, exactly.
I put the feelers out for guests. You can see the difference in, experience that the likes of England has with the many podcasts similar to what we're doing now.
Yeah.
And there wasn't really anything in Ireland at the time, like before we got up and running. So I think trying to get people involved with it was our biggest challenge, but an unreal amount of, response that we've had through Instagram, people wanting to come on, and it's definitely something to be positive about, and, it really sort of lifts our spirits to continue it now for season 2.
But that's what we were saying. Ireland has this keep it to yourself culture, where people don't want to kind of let other people know what they're doing, or if they're struggling, they don't want to tell people that they're struggling, or vice versa. If they're doing well, they don't want to let people know they're doing well.
Yeah.
I know there was a couple of people that I would have worked for, they would have held back on buying a nice car because they didn't want the people that they worked for to know that they had a nice car, because they thought that might have hindered them in future work going forward. Like they might have been saying, well, geez, we're paying him too much, like, you know what I mean? This kind of stuff, which I think is backways, totally backways.
Yeah, and it's crazy because, like, you see even the likes of, you know, the people that were sticking with the curve, you know, in the UK, like the likes of, you know, Danny Webb and, you know, your Mike Pages and even Kimmy, and you look at Ireland and there was nobody for us where you could say that's the guy in Ireland, you know, that you can turn to and say he's the benchmark, you know, or she's the benchmark. So
yeah,
I think it's great, because I don't know how many people now that I can even count that has contacted myself through Instagram that wants just conversation. From listening to us on the podcast, they're willing just to open a conversation
and
with
that
you.
might not even be come on the podcast, it might be just chatting to see how you are, or
just
what he's talking about next week, or because you send them to me, I suppose, every hour you get some type of a message, putting feelers out or seeing what you're going to be talking about next week. And I know the lads in work with me are always on to me, like, what are you talking about this week? Are you giving any prizes away? Like, you know, they're all getting excited for the prizes now. Yeah,
well, I mean, if you think back about it, you know, episode 1, John Doheny, Sulis instructor, brilliant for the apprentices, you know, and the amount of apprentices that were able to actually listen into that and get valuable information about phase 2. And still to this day, like, I'm having apprentices, you know, saying thanks for getting John on and sharing that information. I think John has prospered from it as well, and I think, you know,
one of my lads is with him and said he's brilliant, like, you know.
Yeah, that's right.
He's coming at things from different angles and, you know, fine tuning what, you know, it's kind of like a more one-to-one thing, so you're fine-tuning what you might not be strong on, rather than, you know, when you're put out into a class and you don't really want to fall behind. Sometimes you might be a bit reluctant to tell, you know, your tutor that you're not that strong in that position when there's another 20 lads looking at you, you know. So you have that one-to-one thing, and look, it's as Josh said to me, like, he's only ever going to do it once, so we might as well do it right, you know.
Yeah, and even that, like, you know, having John on and explaining, you know, it's not something to be afraid of once you're open and willing to ask questions about it, because the amount of people I've had getting in touch, not even just through Instagram, just from, you know, you might bump into somebody and say, oh, you're the guys from Insight, you know, he's had John on, and it's actually given me the confidence to go and actually get my grinds now, you know, because I've actually realised that if I didn't step up and get them, that I was only really failing myself, you know. So being willing to actually ask for help before it's too late, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like, he's even running a workshop from, I think he's gone down maybe 2 weekends before his exams. So he's working on the theory and the maths and stuff with him. But he's also going to, like, we wouldn't do a whole lot of, you know, industrial, you know, like your
motor control
and pipe bends and stuff like that. So, like, we do touch on it with the lads just to make them aware of it, but he's literally going to be hands on with him. Yeah. He has, I don't know what his facilities are, but he supposedly has like a rig down there that he can work on specific things in different phases, like, you know.
Yeah, so I've seen it on the Instagram page. It's a very good setup, you know. And yeah, like, even with that, like, I remember actually even, you know, episode 2, Jack Duignan.
Yeah.
I followed Jack on Instagram for a long time.
Same.
And I've watched his, you know, progression, and you know, I was in awe pretty much of him, even from one of the guys from Ireland, to say maybe potentially he was the trailblazer for, you know, the social media guy to be looking at, you know. And when I got him on, like, it's unreal, because I would have probably been afraid myself to contact these guys and actually get talking to them, you know what I mean, to actually open up a conversation with these guys. But once I got the podcast going, so I was ringing Jack, you know, he was ringing me about jobs, he was getting some, you know, feedback from me about fire alarm panels and stuff, and it's like that. It's just opening a community, opening a chat, like you mentioned before, you know. It's making people, you know, confident to get in touch and just say, look, I don't do a lot of this type of work,
but sure, like, even the other day when I was doing the bit of emergency lighting, so I rang you, and then sure, when I was flicking down breakers, I ended up setting off the fire alarm as well, and you just happened to have the knowledge of that fire alarm panel, so, like, 2-second phone call, you know what I mean? So the more links you're creating, like, the easier it is going to be for yourself. Sure, if I didn't have you to contact there, I probably would have been left, you know, having to ring a proper company to come out.
Yeah. Well, I usually see your phone call coming through, and it's either about the podcast or that you're in trouble, yeah. And it's the same with me, it goes both ways, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
you'd often ring me and say, if you were doing this,
yeah,
what
something
way
with
would
domestic, you know, so like I wouldn't be touching on as much of the domestic that you do, so,
yeah.
you know, it goes both ways, and I think that's the great thing about it, you know, it really does open up a new channel of communication, and my, you know, phone book has doubled with numbers since the podcast has started, and it's only through positive chat with people. There's nothing really that I would say if somebody contacted me that I wouldn't know the answer, and if I don't, I'll get them the answer, you know what I mean? And that's just the way I think that works. And I think for yourself and most people that we've spoke to through this whole season, I think they're all on that basis. They're happy enough to get involved and, you know, link in with the Instagram community, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, like, and I mentioned before, we didn't want to keep it fully electrical, you know what I mean? We wanted to open this podcast up to everyone, you know, and I think that's why, you know, episode 3, Jamie Birmingham,
yeah,
advocate for the plumbing industry, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, it does open up as well, like where you can go with your career as well, you know what I mean? When you get into the likes of the plumbing trade and you're not just segregated to, you know, the domestic or industrial sector.
Yeah.
I mean, you can travel Europe, travel the world, you know what I mean?
Once
you know
opportunities there.
Yeah.
Like.
It's not the same as the electrical game, you know. I think if you were going to the likes of Australia or Canada, you know, you're sort of hindered by regs.
By regulations.
Yeah.
There's a lot more regulations.
Plumbing is plumbing, you know. With that, like, if people are willing to come on and share their stories, you know what I mean, it would definitely sort of open people's eyes up to different type of industries there, that you don't just have to go down the same route that
you started in,
yeah.
Like if it's not for you, kind of what you'd be saying is to get out of it and experience something else. You know what I mean? Don't just toddle along when it's maybe not something that you're really interested in. You know?
And even that actually as well, because a few apprentices have been on, you know, just keeping in touch, like, with the podcast and, you know, asking about, you know, could they come on or can they share a story, and they put me on to Kerry Fitzgerald that we had as a guest as well, and
yeah,
I'd seen Kerry's name, but she didn't have much of an online presence, and a lot of other apprentices got in touch with me and actually, you know, said Kerry should be a great advocate for the apprenticeship system, you know.
Yeah.
One Instagram message and she was so open to the podcast, so open to wanting to share her story. And, you know, originally I thought it was going to be the struggles of a female within the industry, but it actually turned out to be completely the opposite, you know what I mean? Her experience was really, really good, you know. It was fresh to hear that, you know what I mean? Because I think people want to push the negative on
negative
things.
side of that, yeah.
Negativity gets clicks, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in fairness, it's not always negative, you know.
No, so we've had nearly no negative feedback from any of the girls that were on, really, have we?
No.
Bar a few things with Kimmy, like the few funny issues with someone handing her a baby when she came into the house and stuff like that, but they're all like, you know.
And I think a lot of the girls might have that experience, but they realise that the lads have negative experiences as well, you know.
Probably worse, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like, because I remember being on, you know, building sites when I first started, and we were put in a room together as apprentices, me and maybe 5 other apprentices, and the qualified lads would make us fight each other, you know.
Yeah.
So I'd be coming home with black eyes or bruises on my back, or, you know what I mean, and trying to explain to my mother and father, you know.
Silly carry on, like.
Yeah, just trying to explain, like, what happened at work, you know. And it's not just, you know, the guys on site and stuff like that, like, it is, you know, the people who have moved up as well, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the upper management and...
Yeah, people have moved into project management, or, you know, and you have the likes of Gary Alder, you know?
Yeah.
He was on, like, he literally worked from, you know, your apprentice to your electrician, the project management, into an MD position, back out into the field again, and now, like, you know, project managing again on one of the biggest projects in London, you know, the Tideway project. And, you know, I think he's released his book there recently, just after the podcast.
It seems to be doing well as well.
It's doing great, yeah, and, you know, I think he's in all the top bookstores, and I know people here in Ireland have bought it as well, and it's doing great for himself. And it's great to see guests that we've had on, you know, actually you know, their own sort of careers in the background blossoming as well, and you can see how they're getting on. And
yeah, well, like Gary has gone full circle, like, so who better to, you know, read up on where he's come from than him, like, in his book.
Yeah, I think like Gary from the Hit the Lights podcast, you know, being a chartered engineer to releasing a book, like, I think I only seen him put up on his Instagram stories, where do I go from here, you know, so
Start again,
yeah. I think the world's his oyster at the minute, you know. But I don't know.
It just shows you the paths that you can go, like, you know what I mean, if you really put your mind to it, like.
Yeah.
I know there's a couple of my lads already thinking about maybe, you know, electrical engineering, doing the night courses when they get finished with their apprenticeships and stuff like that. That's something I always kind of wanted to do, but kind of went down the route of you know, getting my own business set up and stuff, like. But, you know, I'd never say never either to that, like, you know.
Yeah, it's like you were asking me the other day even about, you know, upskilling with the emergency lighting.
I've actually booked that one as well, like, so.
Yeah, so.
Or preliminary booked it, see when I can get a space.
Yeah. But it's all about that. It's all about, you know, thinking about what you can do to better yourself. And by bettering yourself, it's going to better your business, you know.
And better the lads as well. Like,
yeah, you know, you'll be able to answer the lads' questions.
Pass the knowledge down.
And then like that as well, you know, offer your business more income. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we have to always evolve.
Yeah,
you know,
true.
we have to keep evolving, you know.
Yeah, 100%. And we also had Glenn and Anto on the episode, two boys working down in Australia. Anthony's working away on the fly in, fly out in the mines, and Glenn in the tunnels, giving their aspect on, you know, how things are going over in Australia for them after emigrating from Ireland, like.
Yeah, I think after speaking to Glenn, it definitely, you know, brought back memories of when I was over there, and, you know, it put that pretty much out of my mind for a long time, you know. So, you know, not only do you hear about the struggles, you know, but, you know, it definitely gives people more of an insight of what's involved from, you know, getting your visa, getting your money together, and making sure that you have contacts before you arrive, you know. And I don't know about yourself, but, you know, we had like the voice notes from Anthony, you had the voice note from your sister, and definitely hit home with a lot of people, you know, that are working abroad and are people that have family abroad, you know.
Yeah, and really, I'd say it really opened up other people's eyes, like, you know, any of the young folk out there that are looking to go over or planning on going over in the future, like, to what way life can be over there, you know, and things you need, like you touched on, you know, getting up to date with the regs over there as well, and the courses you have to go to get through to work in different areas and stuff. So I'm sure that opened up people's eyes.
Yeah.
To what has to be done before you even go over, like.
Yeah, and how quick you can burn through your money, you know what I mean, before you even get your first pay packet. So it's definitely something I think people need to listen to before going, because, you know, you don't just want to hear about the good stuff, you know, you have to hear about the real stuff, you know.
Yeah, from anything I've heard, like, you're literally, from what I got from it was, you're literally thrown in the deep end from day one, and you're there to fend for yourself. It's not a holiday.
Yeah, it's not a holiday, and I think if you want to make money, you have to work for it, you know. And I've had a few people on Instagram since the episode came out, you know, saying, Jason, it was a great listen. Would you be able to throw the lads' numbers on to me, because I'm thinking of heading over. And after listening to the two boys on the episode, I think I could definitely learn a bit from them. So I was happy enough to share it on. And I think, you know, like that, you're passing on information that's hopefully going to help somebody before they go and when they arrive, you know.
Yeah, like, because I know one of the things that you touched on when we were talking about it is, like, literally you and Denise just literally arrived, landed there, and you were fending for yourselves. But just through the podcast now, you're after giving people a couple of contacts, or, you know, we've had people Instagramming from over there, like, that we could put people in touch with, like. Yeah. So even for that alone, I think it's out there benefiting people a lot.
Yeah, 100%. Like, that the podcast can pretty much work as a conduit, you know, between people that want to go and people that are over there, and let them, you know, join up together and share a bit of information, and then people can decide if it's for them or not before they actually go, and maybe, you know, feel like when they've arrived, oh, I've made a mistake here, you know, or other people could arrive and say it's exactly what I thought it was going to be, you know.
Yeah, exactly. It's different for everyone, isn't it?
And I know we had one of your icons then after, you know, we had Mike Page on.
Yeah.
I think that was a great episode.
Never thought we'd have someone, but it goes back to what you were saying, like, we think these people are like, you know, up at the upper, I would say, upper echelons of the trade, that you'd never get to speak to them like superstars, but like, we got in contact with Mike and couldn't be more down to earth, like.
Yeah, and I think that does it. Like I said to Mike, I, you know, messaged him after the whole you know, the negative debacle that was going on at the time, and, you know, it was just positivity, you know, messaging somebody positive comments, you know, and just having a chat with him, and you realise, you know, you're just two lads, you know, with the same goal of just, you know, putting positive information out into the ether, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think, you know, Mike, he's stayed in touch even since the episode has come out. Like, he hasn't just been a fly in, fly out guest either, you know what I mean? He's yeah, he supported the podcast, you know, pretty much as soon as he was asked to come on up until now, you know.
But like, in fairness to him, he kind of supported what we were doing as well, and just judging by his Instagram, it's kind of the same route he's gone with the educational side. Like, I know stuff he's put up recently, any young lad or young one that's looking to go into the trade, like, he'd be one of the lads that you'd be pointing them in the direction of, you know.
Yeah, and I think it was fitting for that episode to have all the apprentices on after, you know, because of what you were mentioning there. You know, Mike he's now putting out these stories that are based on, you know, telling apprentices what different aspects of the job is compared to the units that you might install, right down to tools that you might need.
It's basically like a would you call it digital on-site guide, like.
Yeah.
Do you know, you don't even have to have it in paperback, like, you know yourself, we're all on our phones now, and like, to have that in your pocket, like, you know, if you were thinking of putting in an RCBO, you might say, right, we'll just check out Mike's page and see what he has to say about that, because he has it all there, like, you know.
Yeah, and I think the main, you know, feedback that I got from the apprentices after we interviewed Mike is always ask questions, you know, and some people are afraid to ask questions, so to have somebody like Mike posting this information up on a digital platform like you mentioned, it's out there, you know, so somebody that's just scrolling through their Instagram page looking at the same, you know, stories of, you know, sockets being replaced or fuse boards being installed, come across Mike where it's literally him answering a question that you might have been afraid to ask your mentor or something, you know.
And dissecting everything, you know, down to, like, you know, he's going right into what the functionalities are of the different components, not just throwing them into a board and then not saying anything about it, you know.
Yeah, his product knowledge is unmatched, actually, in fairness, but just recently we've had Kimmy on. That was amazing to get, you know, the perspective of a trailblazing female sparks in the UK, you know. Yeah,
I thought it was refreshing actually having her on. She was like a breath of fresh air from what we were talking about before, and I thought some of her stories were quite funny as well, like, in some of the things she's encountered since she started out there on her own, like, you know.
Yeah, I think it felt like you were talking to somebody that you knew your whole life.
Yeah, to a mate, like, yeah.
I think I put up on the stories after it that she was a bucket of good vibes.
Yeah.
And I had to leave the little sing-song in at the end that she put. It was brilliant, you know.
Yeah, we were talking about that, saying will we leave or will we take it out, and I said I think you should put it in because it was just epitomised her, like, and the interview as a whole as well. Yeah. Even the bits before the interview when we were chatting about how we were going to structure it and all, like, you could have easily put that in on the podcast itself, and it would have went well, like, you know. I
think that's what a lot of people we've had on, there's a lot of bits that we'd call the edits, you know, or, you know, the bloopers and stuff, and you're talking to people and it's so comfortable. It's like you've spoke to them, before, and some of these people we've never spoke to before, so it's great to be able to instantly, hit it off with people. Yeah, and we can't forget Richard Cockerline either. He came on and he shared his struggles and the adversity that he had to overcome as a mature learner, and Richard has been an avid supporter of the podcast since we started it, and he's a true gem of a human being, and I think he's one of the few gentlemen that are still out there. And even talking to Richard after the interview, and he was telling us how happy he was just to be invited on, and how giving him a platform to speak, he was actually proud of that, so it's great to hear that people are just happy to be given the platform to speak.
Yeah, because in general they'll have the same outlook. Like, by wanting to come on to the podcast, they're probably in the same frame of mind as you anyway. Like, where they have something to say, and you're giving them a medium to say it, so automatically they're going to be happy and enthusiastic to be on.
And not forgetting actually as well, we had Dan McAdam on, and he was giving people the opposite side of the industry, the actual admin end of things.
Yeah, I think I got probably, out of all the podcasts we done, I probably got the most out of his one. Just obviously being a business owner and the way he put things into perspective, and the likes of the systems and the products that he provides. It really would give. I'm okay now because I've Jen there looking after everything like that, and she's very good at it. But just thinking back to when I was starting out, she had her own job, and really could have done with someone like him and his product to, give me that first initial push at the start,
Yeah, just you can elevate the company off the ground, at the start, when it doesn't put all the pressure within the one household,
Yeah, no, 100%. And he did say that, you don't have to go for the top package that he offers. It could be just a starter package, or I just thought I found it really interesting. I didn't even know there was something like that out there.
Yeah.
If I had it, I would have definitely looked into it,
And I think he was mentioning that, the likes of, moving into the Irish market as well, that trying to get people to realise that they can actually hand over the reins, and feel like that they don't have to do everything themselves, So I think, apart from all the guests we've had on, we are looking to, try and keep the rhythm going for season 2, and try and keep, good information coming out of guests, and like that, we're not just picking people for the sake of, having them as a filler for our chat, there's always a message to get out there,
Yeah, you're not just plucking them out of the sky. I know you do a lot of work in the background, trying to find people to come on who you think that would have, a good story to tell, or a good system to offer people and to make things a little bit easier. And then I know you're actively looking to try and I think you have someone in the bag for, maybe the health and nutrition side, and keeping yourself fit, body and mind. So
yeah, that's a big one, I think, because there's a lot of people. I think even James Carraher, when we had him on, he mentioned that's something that would interest a lot of tradespeople. They're out there, they're in the vans, maybe they're getting home late in the evenings, they're not having time to prep meals for themselves, or they feel like they don't have time to get something together for the next day. But just to be able to get somebody's knowledge on how to actually prep something in advance and know that you're eating healthy during the week can actually not just fuel your body, it fuels your mind as well.
Yeah, no, I'd be interested in listening to, people talking about maybe their work-life balance, and, because I suppose everyone's different. Like, some people would describe that as, maybe less work, more, outside of work activities, and then other people would see it another way, like, is, you need to do a bit more groundwork to get maybe your business or your brand off the ground, so there'd be different aspects and different point of views for that as well,
Yeah, I think, if you think about the the hard physical work that a tradesperson does on the daily, and you think about, your food intake, if you were to balance that out correctly, you could have the same goals and results as somebody, that's in a gym that's telling you, this is the workout you have to do, this is the food you have to eat, and these are the benefits that you're going to reap from it, So I think if you can balance the actual physical end of a tradesperson's day with the diet, I think that's the ultimate goal of getting Killian on in season 2 to explain about that,
Yeah, that's the big one. Like, what you should be eating at what times, what's going to make you feel fuller for longer, and then obviously tailoring something to your own work schedule that you're getting in a bit of physical exercise as well, because you know yourself, like, things, you do let things slip, and when you're busy, you're mentally tired. Sometimes these are things you just don't want to do, but like, Killian's going to give us a bit of a hand hopefully with that, and I'm sure a lot of people will be interested in hearing that one.
Yeah, and another thing that was great during the whole season was the interaction from our Instagram listeners. I think one of the most common questions that we've got in throughout the whole process was, can you explain a bit more on the solar aspect of things, because they know that you promote a lot of it through your TikTok, you promote a lot of it through your Instagram, and I know you do have a lot of information regarding, getting a solar project off the ground and, excuse the pun, up onto the roof,
Yeah, and sometimes on the ground as well, you know what I mean? So, but some people might not know, like, that, you are kind of governed by your house where the solar can go, like, and your orientations. Do you have a flat roof? Do you have a pitched roof? Do you have an open field that you can fit it into? Like,
yeah, but that's what I was just thinking that, because I've seen one of the stories you posted a while back, and you were mounting the panels in the grass of somebody's back garden, and people might not realise, whatever way your house is facing or whatever, you might not get the ultimate sunlight throughout the day on your roof. It could be a certain section of your garden, and if you have that space to utilise, why not,
And that's where scheduling a consultation, or getting someone that does know the ins and outs of where it can go, and what size system that you will need. That's where all that becomes beneficial. Like, I know the company we do all our work for, Greenhouse Renewables, they have a team there that will bring you step by step, like, from consultation stage to maybe site assessment, then obviously through to us doing the install, and then signing off and commissioning, the project completion stage. So
you mentioned there site assessment, like, so people might think, site assessment, what does that entail? Like, does that entail yourselves as electricians coming out and assessing it, or is it the likes of somebody from Greenhouse actually coming and giving like a comprehensive check on the roof?
Usually you'd have one of the guys from Greenhouse coming out, so they'll have a criteria that they'll be trying to meet. Obviously they'll go out and they'll assess your roof. They'll basically, they would have got your your intake for the year, per kilowatt hour, like, kilowatt hours usage per year. So they'll have a general idea what size system you need, because obviously if you're in a household where you have maybe the 2 adults and 4 kids, obviously the usage is going to be a lot higher than maybe someone that's a couple that's in retirement age. You know what I mean? There's a lot less, and then you have to take into account like heating systems, EVs, different types of electrical heating systems. You have to take all that into account as well. So it's trying to balance all that out to get you the best package possible, like, or whether you need even things down to when you work, like, do you work at night or do you work during the day? Do you sleep during the day? Are you on shift work? Like, so that's when you're like, the likes of your batteries will come into play. Like,
Have you got EVs? Have you got like
yeah,
cars that you need charging at night time or during the day?
even to the point where a lot of the young lads will have these the battery operated bicycles and stuff like that as well, and a lot of people in town will have them to do their daily commutes. Like, I know it's probably small powers compared to the cars, but you take everything into, like, even a small system will cover the cost of charging them bikes for the year. Do you know what I mean? And
going through the likes of Greenhouse, obviously they're going to use quote certified installers. So
100%,
the likes of yourselves being certified installers, obviously it's going to give the client who's looking for this the bit of relaxed knowledge that they're going to get a proper, well installed project.
Yeah, these guys are SCAI accredited, an SCAI accredited company, and then like we're an SCAI registered installer. So basically, hand in hand, we'll take the customer, like, from, as we said, the consultation stage to the completion stage, and even to the ease of use. Like, a lot of these inverters now are app ready and Wi-Fi ready. So, for the likes of your retired couple, like, where they don't want to be going into a space where they can't get at the inverter, they can still monitor everything online. And basically what we'd have then is we'd have the same application with like a installer's portal, so we can monitor alarm messages and any malfunctions in the systems and get onto it straight away. So there's that customer service in the background as well, where we're not just installing and getting in, getting out. There is a customer service there that's provided by them as well, like.
So I mean, like, in regard to yourself as an installer, that you're installing one of these systems like through Greenhouse, so that once you've done the installation, they can monitor it. For a fact that, like, if you're going to be called out to a follow-up call on this, that you'll get the correct information and any details that you need from Greenhouse, because they're available there as the post customer service team.
Yeah, and like you'll find that most inverters will have maybe an 8 to 10 year warranty on them, and then like the panels have a ridiculous warranty of like 25 years, and their efficiency levels are kind of unmatched to any other energy source. Like, so even after the 25 years, some of them will claim that you still have 80% of efficiency on that panel.
So you'd agree that from somebody supplying gear themselves, that they might have just ordered online through an independent supplier, say, that by using a company like Greenhouse, getting it off the ground, getting the assessment done, getting the installation in place, that having that single point of a go-to post-completion, that if there was ever any issues or you needed any type of information, you've got a single point of contact where you can get any type of information regarding parts, maintenance and stuff like that.
Yeah, even down to post-connection BER assessments for your SCAI grants. Like that's another thing. They handle the grant process from start to finish as well. So they'll obtain the through us in like hand in hand. They'll obtain the NC6 form to get allowance from the ESB to actually connect to the grid. Like as like you're going to be exporting at different times, so it's vitally important that you're checking with the ESB to know that you can. I think it's called the max export capacity. So you need to keep on top of that as well. So your NC6 goes in, then you get it. If you don't hear back from them, you take it that you're good to go, and then the grant application process starts then, and they fill it out from start to finish, with with help from us, with the electrical certification as well. So
I think it's interesting because coming from me, who's not in the domestic game, I wouldn't see a lot of the solar installation aspect of it all. So to be able to get a bit of knowledge on that. And I know that there has been people, where you've got some questions coming in, obviously, constantly every week through Instagram saying, Keith, can you explain a bit more about it? Or, what do I need to do to get into this type of game? Did you do anything yourself in regards to upskilling to, know that this was going to be the sector you were going to move into as a company?
Yeah, suppose when solar started coming into Ireland, I would have worked with a company that I'm still working with today, but only on my own, with my own company, House to Home. They would have been, straight on it when I came into the country. So, through that, then we dabbled with it and we got the relevant courses. So we did our training with Chevron Training. Toddy, I think, is the name of the instructor down there. He's kind of well renowned in the industry. And we got talks from Quentin in solar electricity, who's a very knowledgeable person in the field as well. So and then to the likes of doing your 1 day training on, we've got training on Give Energy inverters, we've got training on the Solace and also the Huawei inverters. So yeah, there is 1 day courses that you can do on the different inverters for setup and for commissioning and stuff like that.
Yeah, so in your opinion then, what would you think is the main benefits for somebody looking to get solar panels in that they might already have EV chargers in already?
Well, in my opinion, people that have the EV chargers, I think you'd be mad not to have the solar panels. In my opinion, you'd probably have the solar panels in first and the inverter in first before you got the EV, because the cost of running per kilowatt hour, running the EVs, most of them are 77, up to 100 kilowatt hours capacity in the battery. So, you're gonna have to drag those units from the grid. So I think it's a no-brainer to have the solar system in prior to getting the car. It's like that saying, isn't it? The cart before the horse, you know what I mean? So you really need to have that in place, I think, before you get the EV. Unless you're going to be charging from work, or your company has facilities that you can charge during the day. But yeah, that's the way I'd be going with it as well. And look, most of the EV chargers now, I know, especially My Energy Zappy, will have a configuration in it where you can charge the car solely from export power only. I think they call it Eco Plus. So basically what you do is, especially for people that work from home, you can have it plugged in during the daylight hours. You'd have it plugged in and the charger knows from export that obviously there's power leaving the house and going back to grid. So what it'll do is it'll automatically engage and start charging the car. So basically that's free energy, free fuel that you're putting into the car. The way you have to look at it is you've got, what would you call it, a nuclear reactor, free energy in the sky. So why not harness it and grab the power from it?
Yeah, 100%. Right, I guess it's fitting to close out the overload on this season with one of your apprentices, Keith. Josh has arrived in to join us for the last part of the episode.
Yeah, he's been slacking in Sullus the last couple of weeks, so good to have him in, give him a few slaps.
Yeah, 100%. Josh, it's great to have you.
Great to be here, Stephen. Thank you very much.
Yeah, look, myself and Keith, we set up the podcast originally to, shine a light on not just the electrical industry, but the trade industry as a whole. And, one of the main things is shining a light on maybe difficulties that certain people might have getting through the system. And the likes of yourself has a learning difficulty.
Well, that's, I've no problem saying it. I've had dyslexia since a young age, and I did think about the electrical apprenticeship, and the dyslexia was kind of pushing me back because of the maths. But in the end, I just had to say, right, we'll give it a go and get through it. And I suppose I spoke to Keith when I started, and he was aware and he spoke when the time came. We'd organise grinds, and I've gotten the grind since I've started. You put me in contact with a man, John is his name, and he's extraordinary. He's very, very good, and he's shown me plenty to get me through.
Yeah, and for somebody who could be listening today thinking that they want to, pursue a trade apprenticeship and thinking that something like dyslexia could hold them back in a sense, what would you have to say to somebody like that?
I suppose I obviously thought it'd hold me back, but I just had to go for it. It's something I was interested in doing, and I couldn't let it hold me back. But when you go into FOSS or SOLAS, as you call it, you do your first 2 weeks on the computers, and then in my opinion, I suffer with the maths, would be my problem. Other people could suffer with the literacy, but I suffer with the maths. So you're put in for your 2 weeks, your first 2 weeks, and then you're given a maths test to do, and it's kind of landed on you. You don't say a specific day, can't study for it. So you do what you can do, and there's a woman then meets with you one-to-one after, and you talk about your result and where you're struggling, and they go through the whole test with you, and then it's decided if, depending on your workshop time and your practical, they pull you out of that for an hour, and then you give an hour your own time, and you get, say, 2 hours a week of grinds in college, which is a huge gift because you can actually study on what you're after doing in class just at an awful lot slower pace. So you're not slacking back, because the lads that are good at the maths, they stay in the workshop. They might struggle at the workshop stuff. Whereas I'm obviously with Keith now 3 years in June, and I've picked up very kind of quick on the practical end of things. So it's a gift in that way that I can pull back from the practical and then go into the maths with the grinds.
Yeah, and in your opinion, you wouldn't feel like, that you're out there like a black sheep in the field when you're in there, that the support is kept quite relaxed, and it keeps you pretty much on the same level as everybody else to allow you to get through the system pretty much with the same experience as every other apprentice that's going through it.
Yeah, well, there's definitely more than one person out there with dyslexia. There's actually quite a few. There's 3 or 4 of us in my particular class out of 14 that would struggle with the dyslexia. So it's you're not on your own. There's always somebody else. So even the likes of during class time, just shoot the questions out, because there's always somebody thinking the same question as you.
Yeah.
So that you don't be afraid.
Well, like what you said there, not to be afraid. You were brave enough to contact myself and ask for a contact of John to be able to go out there and actually say to somebody, look, I need grinds. Can you actually support me on this? And you'd have other people that wait too long to actually ask for the help.
Yeah, that's I was obviously done my first 2 weeks in the classroom theory and things, and I realised that I was falling a little bit behind, and the support, the grinds just didn't kick off because you're only still in early days, and that's why I said I need to nip this on the butt, because the exams creep up when you're very quick. So if you nip it on the butt from the start and get the help, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and it would definitely help on the mental health aspect of things, because you don't want people feeling like they're out there alone, you know what I mean? Keith, you wouldn't feel like somebody with that type of, learning difficulty would set them back in any way out on site,
No, definitely not. And there's not only Josh. I think there's 2 of the other fellas in the same boat. One kind of with literacy, and both of them with literacy as well, issues, but I don't think it's held them back in any way, shape or form. It's not the be all and the end all, where they might think that lets them down, they thrive in other areas, especially they're not going to be doing calculations on site. It wouldn't make an issue for me, but for themselves, getting the help in there and figuring out different ways to approach different situations, I think it can only help them,
Yeah, and would you feel, Josh, that the Instagram community now has helped you in any way in order to get your knowledge even from other people as well that can help you?
That's when, there's people out there on Instagram as well. The like the big thing I suppose with the maths end of things when you go in there is learning off all the formulas, and there's a lot of people out there on TikTok that just put up little tips, little study tips for phase 2, and even I contacted you through Instagram to get in contact with John, and he's an Instagram page as well, and he puts up little bits that's handy to know. So definitely the social media and things does help as well.
Yeah, and I think, you know, without even us doing the podcast, I don't think I ever would have met John. And, you know, that just proves the sort of roots that have been sort of grown from this podcast has sort of spread out across yourselves. And, you know, other apprentices that might be listening to this episode might think of, you know, I'm going to do what Josh did and contact maybe yourself, Josh, and see what routes you've gone down to. Maybe that might benefit somebody else, you know.
But you know, back in the day, going through the apprenticeship, like, you wouldn't have had the likes of, you know, Instagram, TikTok, any of those, you know, to help. Like, any help you got was first-hand help, information from, I suppose, your superiors or lads that were ahead of you in the apprenticeship and stuff. Like, and, you know, help was few and far between.
Yeah, you felt like you were in a boat on your own with the paddles, you know.
Yeah.
And I think everybody was afraid years ago to actually speak up and say, you know, I'm struggling here, or, you know, could you help me with this? Everybody, like what you mentioned, Keith, people in Ireland as a whole were afraid to actually let people in, you know.
Those books.
Yeah. For anybody, obviously, you know, looking to go down the same route as yourself, Josh, and they were looking to maybe get a bit more information off you, can they contact you through Instagram?
Yeah, Josh Flynn 2003 is my name on Instagram, and don't be afraid, just shoot me a text anytime, day or night, and I'll answer any questions they have. Yeah, no problems at all.
No, look, thanks for sharing. I think it's stuff like that, like people coming on willing to, you know, share their voice with other people about, you know, if it's struggles or positivity, you know, we're accepting it all on this podcast. So, look, we'll keep in touch with you. Obviously, you're Keith's apprentice, so we can obviously monitor how you get on, but we'll definitely get you back on at a later stage, season 2, and see. No pressure.
No pressure, yeah, get through these exams and I'll get back on.
Yeah.
All passes.
100%. Take it easy, Josh.
Cheers, Steve. Thanks.
See ya.
Right, that was great having Josh on, giving us a bit of an insight into what it's like going through the apprenticeship system at the minute, especially with, you know, what people might consider a difficulty, but being able to turn it into something that's, you know, not going to hold you back in a sense, you know.
Yeah, and just being, I suppose, what is the word, brave, you know, and not being afraid to go and seek some help if you need it. I found it interesting to see how Sulis kind of approach that in a kind of discreet kind of way. So that's that was a good point from Josh.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely something that we'd like to, you know, touch on again at some stage if people are willing to come on and share their stories. We're willing to accept them, you know. So I guess we'll wrap it up now, and we've got Courtney Chard coming on after this, a welder from Canada who is doing great things for promoting the industry over there.
Yeah, no, it'd be interesting now to hear her story, and I've heard a lot of good things about her, so excited to have her on.
Yeah, 100%, and I think, you know, it's only fitting now that we've had each guest this season add one song to the season 1 Spotify playlist, so I'd be interested to hear what song you would choose to play out this instalment of the Overload to.
Right, so I've been going through a weird phase in my life where I've been listening to a lot of country music. So, you know the way you go between like your rap, your techno, but I'm at the country music stage of my life. So, I will be picking Whiskey Glasses by Morgan Wallen.
Brilliant. Perfect. Keith, I'll catch it on season 2 and I'll play you out now to your song choice. Take it easy, man.
Cheers, Steve-O. Really enjoyed the podcast and well done.
My guest today is a welder and an artist from Toronto, Canada. She's an avid supporter of the trade industry, and she does a lot in the background to promote women into the trades and inspire the new generation of school leavers to take up apprenticeships. Welcome to the podcast, Courtney Chard. Courtney, thanks for taking the time to come on the final episode of season 1. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's quite an honor.
No problem at all. And look, I guess for any of our listeners who are not quite sure or might not know who you are, we'll try and take things back a little bit. And I'll try and find out, what were you like as a student in school, and what fueled your desire to pursue a trade industry role as a welder?
I wasn't a very good student. I wasn't a strong student. I struggled in school. My father was a pipeline welder in Local 46, Toronto. And he always seemed really proud of his career and what he did for a living. And as I got closer to graduation in high school, your guidance counselors are like, you have to choose, what university or college you want to go to and what you want to do. And I was kind of getting this like panicked feeling because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I went and chose just any course at a local college. It was like a law and security program, just so, I wouldn't be a failure. You had to go on and do something after high school. At least that's what, in my generation, I'm 45 years old. So in my generation, that's what you do. You go to post-secondary. And there was no mention of trades for women. So I knew right away when I started college that I hated it. What I chose, but I finished it because you didn't want to be a dropout either. And I eventually got the courage to come up to my father and say, I would like to do something in the trades. And he was very supportive, and he says, okay, let's get you welding. And then he helped me join the union. But yes, I wasn't very strong in school, and it was more of, I wanted to have a career that would give me the lifestyle that my parents had provided for me. Yeah.
And you mentioned there your father and how open he was to, accepting the fact that you wanted to pursue that job style. And we've spoke to a few people on different episodes, predominantly women that, went into the trade industry and met some stereotypes or challenges going into it. Had you met any of those yourself, and how did you overcome them?
Oh, absolutely. Like when I first got in the trade, so this is 24 years ago, there was very few women on the jobs. Like you wouldn't see any women. I was the only woman. And, there were some people who were just treated me like normal. And there was other people that had the attitude of, I shouldn't make the same wage as a man because they felt like I didn't, do the same amount of work or was as valuable. And I was very aware, though, when I got into the trade, I knew that I would face that. I knew with the generation, with the age, with not very many women being in the trade, I was very aware that I would face these challenges. I wasn't naive, like thinking that, oh, it's just going to be great and I'm going to be accepted. I knew I would have these challenges. So I think I had mentally prepared myself for it and almost braced myself for it. And my attitude was, you know what? I'm going to be like one of the first women in the trades, and I'm going to make things easier for people coming after me. And that was more my attitude. So I don't know why I had that attitude or how I knew that would happen. I just knew, and I accepted kind of that role.
Yeah, and I think it's not a role like people would think like the main trades when you're thinking about like electricians or plumbers or carpenters. And, from seeing some of your videos on Instagram, I think the welding role is quite badass. And so for any type of listener that's listening that is not quite sure what a day in the life of a welder could entail, could you describe it for us?
Well, so welding is pretty diverse. There's welding in almost every trade. So I'm a pressure pipe welder. So we do mechanical systems in hospitals, schools, industrial, and we can do pipeline. So that's gas, oil, steam, water. So we weld pipes for the mechanical systems in buildings to provide heat, hot water, chilled water, and cooling. So I'm a mobile welder, which means I have a truck, and my truck is equipped with the equipment and tools that I need to go from site to site and weld those systems. So I usually have a fitter with me. I'm never alone. And I'll go from different job sites around the GTA in Toronto. And I could be anywhere from a day on site to a couple months, depending on how much welding needs done.
Yeah, and like there's a stigma or a mindset that, is here in Ireland and in the UK that you only end up in a trade profession because you're not academically good. But, do you think we need, and maybe across the water as well in Canada and the US, that there needs to be more of a promotion to, explain the benefits of the industry better, especially, like the salary that can be made within it?
Yeah. So I do meet a lot of construction workers who obviously didn't do well in school. We, generally tend to learn by doing. We like change in scenery. We like to be hands-on. We're just mechanically inclined. We're usually that type of person. Now, in saying that, it doesn't mean we're not intelligent. It doesn't mean we're not smart. It just means we learn in different ways. Now, I have also worked with a lot of individuals now who have come from the university environment and have just not been fulfilled or in that type of a job where, go into IT and it's like boring, or they just can't get the job. And they've come from that environment into the trades and have done quite well also. So, I don't think you can ever judge a book by its cover or give these like blanket statements. Like it just doesn't work. I think the more people that are aware of the trades, the better.
Yeah, 100%. I think, we try to touch upon it in this podcast a lot that, the trade industry and the people within it are the backbone of pretty much the world. And, without us or without the welders, the electricians, the carpenters, the plumbers, etc., that, the world would come to a stop, So I think it's very underappreciated, and the more, shine that we put on it, the better,
Absolutely.
And, we have spoken to a lot of, female trades. We haven't really touched upon the working mother that's within the trade industry. And, I was just wondering, by yourself, how hard is it as a mom to stay at the top of your game within a trade career, and how do you balance raising a child and working within the trades?
So that one's a tough one. And the problem with the women that we have with women in the trades is keeping women in the trades, the retention. So we get these women that come in when they're young, before they are married or before they have a family. And we train them, and, to be a steam fitter or plumbing apprentice, that's a 5-year apprenticeship. And to be a welding apprentice, that's a 3-year apprenticeship. And, we put a lot of money into training these women, and we want them to stay. We need them. We need the workers. But then, they get married and they want to have children like women do. And we need that. We need women to have children. And so then we lose these women lots of times because the hours, we start so early. Like I'm up at 4:00 in the morning and start work at 6, and there's just no daycare at that time. And so retention's it's a problem. It's an issue. We're trying to make it easier on these women when they do have children. The government's aware of it. It's trying to find daycare that early or daycare late at night. It's issues with employers, like understanding the fact that, equality and equity are two different things. Some demographics need different help at different times and stages of their lives. So, when women, when their children are small, might need some special treatment, or, and I mean, or a single father might need that. We all go through these challenges during different parts of our lives, but children do grow up, and they do get where you can leave them alone a little bit longer, and you can, come back to like a regular work schedule. So it's great if, employers kind of get on board and maybe allow the women to maybe start a little later on, or, with my union now, there's benefits for the mothers when they're on maternity leave. They keep up their regular pay, so to try and keep the women in the trade. And if they do go away for 5-10 years to raise their family, let's try and bring them back into the trade after that.
I think it's definitely it's a universal problem, and I think not one country, I think, seems to have the right answer. And like what you mentioned there, it's not forgetting about these women when they decide to take some time to support their families. It's remembering that they are there, that they have skills, and like what you said, get them back in and utilize them again.
Yeah, and it's just giving them that support. So with me, it was difficult. Again, been in the trade 24 years. So obviously when I had my child, she's 11 now, if it wasn't for my mother living with us in a basement apartment, I'd have no idea how I would have done it. Yeah, it would have been impossible.
Yeah, I know you mentioned your daughter there, Hayden, and I've seen online that she's taken a shine to the welding as well. And I know the both of you do a lot of work through kick-ass careers to inspire the next generation. Can you talk us through a little bit about what initiatives they get you involved in?
Oh, yeah. So Kick-Ass Careers is a mentorship program, and we go into schools and we try and inspire the youth to be aware of these trades and to get into them or consider them as a career option. And the younger you expose children to the trades, the better it is. So research shows that by grade 5, it's already too late. So we try to go in when they're, grade 1, kindergarten, grade 2, and get them when they're really young, and make them aware that the trades are an option for them.
Yeah, you must be very proud to see your daughter taking up that skill and following after yourself.
It's an interesting balance. Like, you don't want to force it on her. So I don't, but she definitely has to learn to respect the trades. It, has given and provided her an excellent lifestyle, just like it did for me. So she definitely has respect. And I like that she is exposed to all these other wonderful women with kick-ass, different trades, boilermakers, carpenters, electricians, and she looks up to them. So it's, I'm really happy for that she has that group.
Yeah, it's opened up my eyes. Like, there's some mornings where I have to remind my daughter to remember to brush her teeth and put her shoes on. So to see your daughter welding, it's amazing.
Oh, thank you.
I believe you were the first woman to sit on the executive board of the UA Local 46 union. How proud were you to take that position up, and how important do you feel it is to have unions representing blue collar workers?
Oh, I mean, oh my God. I can't remember, because my father was a union worker. So everything in my life I owe to a union. And to be voted in to the executive board by my peers was, it was amazing, because you got to put yourself out there and you never know what they're going to think. And their support, and they've always been supportive of me, means a lot. But yeah, we definitely need unions out there. We provide the best training, the best safety. So it's just provided such an amazing life for me. I don't know what my life would have been like if it wasn't for the union.
Yeah, congratulations on that, because I think it's very it's very good to know that your community of peers, actually respect your voice, like, and are willing to put you up on that pedestal and have you represent them. It's an amazing feeling to have.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
And I see, I follow your Instagram page. I try to like as much of your content that you put up, and I see from the side work that you do that you have a very artistic flair, and you manage to blend your craft skills of welding with your art so seamlessly. And I'm just wondering, how did you figure out that this was something you had a passion for?
So I was always like artistic in school. I went to the School of the Arts for Visual Arts, and but I always kind of was told you can't make money as an artist. So pick a real career. And so that's why I got into the welding. But welding is very artistic, and it actually used to be considered an art form. And now it's considered a trade, but it was an art for a long time, considered that or under that classification. And then I just kind of merged the two, and I really enjoy it. And it's been a great, source of extra income for me. And I would love to maybe get into it. Like maybe that would be like an early retirement for me. Like I could do that full time. Yeah. I'm really enjoying it.
It leads into my next question. I was going to ask, did you ever see the artistry taking a lead over your craft work, or and maybe as your main income in a sense, or do you feel like that the two of them really do need to coexist together?
Well, at the moment, I need them to coexist, but my dream is definitely to maybe do an early retirement and then do it full time. Yeah.
Yeah, no, look, it's great work that you're putting out there, and I think even the photography and some of the film work that goes with your content is great as well. So I have to do a big shout out for that as well.
Yeah, Andre, we actually met through social media, and we just get along, and we kind of combine both our art forms together, and the results are amazing.
Yeah, it definitely brings your artistry to a different level, in fairness. For any girls listening to this podcast right now and are thinking, I want to be like Courtney, I want to, get into a trade similar to yourself, what advice would you give them?
Well, my thing right now is you don't need anyone's permission to make your life better. And I think with women, we seem to always look for permission, and you really don't need it. If you want to do something, just go for it and do it. And there's no such thing as failure. I ran across this young lady, and she had started out as a plumbing apprentice, and then I met her again at another company, and she was kind of embarrassed, and she says, well, I'm not a plumbing apprentice anymore, I'm just working in the office. And I just looked at her and I said, you don't need to be embarrassed about that. I mean, your value is no less. And I go, you actually add value because you're in the office, and because you have that trade knowledge, I can speak to you and you actually can understand and grasp what I'm saying when I'm using proper trade terms. So we don't need permission to do anything. And you don't need that outside approval. If you want to do something, just go for it.
Brilliant. It's a great bit of advice and a bit of insight there. So for anybody looking to find you online to get some information or knowledge about your trade, or even just to follow up about your artwork, where can they find you?
So Facebook at Courtney Chard, and Instagram Chard Courtney.
Brilliant. And look, Courtney, unfortunately, we've come to the final question now, but for some, it's their favourite. For others, it's the worst one, but I'm putting together a season 1 playlist on Spotify, and I ask each guest to add one song onto it. Courtney, what would your song of choice be?
See, I thought about this one. Anything by Stone Temple Pilots. I've been listening to them.
Stone Temple Pilots. Well, I'll choose it for you then, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And look, Courtney, I wish you the best for the rest of 2024 and the rest of your career. And I'll keep in touch with you with your artistic flair as well. I love that bit of content, so I'll always be keeping an eye on that. And I'm going to play you out now to your song choice. Take it easy.
Thank you.
Right, unfortunately, that's just about it for season 1. But before I go, I just want to say a massive thank you to my co-host, Keith Delahan, who took me up on the offer, came along on the ride and helped make this podcast what it is today. And a big shout out to all our guests that we had across each episode who shared their insights, their journeys and their trade knowledge. If you liked what you heard this season, head over to wherever you get your podcast, give us a like and a follow to be notified when the next season drops. So to play us out, I'm going to pick my Season 1 Spotify playlist song choice. It's Chris Stapleton, White Horse. Take it easy, everyone.